I came across a statistic that more than half of Americans have an unfavorable view of Muslims. I immediately flashed back to my own childhood, the discrimination that I faced as a young Jewish kid. Someone threw a rock through the front window of our house at one point. You know, we felt like the other.
What has resonated with me everywhere I've been is the softness and the embrace of Islam by Muslims of other cultures. I every year get Christmas cards from Muslims quoting from the Quran about the birth of Jesus. The only woman named, literally named in the Quran is the Virgin Mary.
If you're a woke white person, or if you're a woke non-Muslim, then part of the obligation of being woke is to wake others. And it's sad to say that non-Muslim readers may give more credit to an honest, nuanced portrait of Muslim life coming from me than from the many, many Muslim American students I've had.
Merrimack College has offered the Goldziher Prize to scholars, writers, and activists who work on behalf of inclusion, tolerance, and understanding of difference. And this year, we honor 3 journalists, chosen by a jury of their peers: Joshua Seftel, Sam Freedman, and Robin Wright. They are honored both for their craft and for their ethic, and for the courage and commitment that is essential to a free society such as ours. It's my pleasure to introduce our MC for the evening, and we're very, very fortunate that he could join us, Wajat Ali. Wajat.
Thank you, Joe. I am Wajat Ali, an American Muslim of Pakistani descent, and nothing says popularity in 2017 America as American Muslim of Pakistani descent. Believe it or not, my parents thought it would be hilarious to name their only child, growing up in Fremontistan, California, Wajahat. And this is a true story. And they didn't teach me English until I was 5, because who needs English in America? But thank you to America, I ended up graduating from UC Berkeley with an English major. But growing up, you never saw yourself on TV. And you never saw your story being represented. And you never saw your mother, who roots on the Golden State Warriors while wearing a sari and drinking chai and cursing at you in Urdu, right? And that was the experience of many of us. The stories of 1.7 billion Muslims and 1,400 years of Islamic civilization were reduced to a stock stereotype, often one with a lot of rage and anger and a lot of hairiness and brownness and bellicose rage and bad hygiene. Out of 176 guests invited on CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC to discuss President Trump's first travel ban targeting 7 Muslim-majority countries, how many were Muslim? 13, 12. Who said 13? Well done, nerd. 14. But do the math. That's less than 1%. Right now in 2017 America, the favorability rating of this thing called Islam and Muslims is lower than the month following the 9/11 attacks. And so this is why the Goldziher Award is so important, because it acknowledges this urgency of these interesting times that we live in. And these are the stories we're helping highlight with the Goldziher Prize. Excellent storytelling done by excellent journalists with excellent professional etiquette and ethics that show the nuances, the warts, the glories, the hopes, the dreams, and the biryani recipes of 1.7 billion people who are more than just ISIS or Osama or Barack. First up, we have my friend Josh Seftel. He is an award-winning documentary filmmaker. So give it up to Josh Seftel.
So I want to thank the Center for Study of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim Relations at Merrimack College. 6 years ago, I came across a statistic which Waj mentioned, which was that more than half of Americans have an unfavorable view of Muslims. I'm a filmmaker, and I thought, looking at the statistic, there are stories to tell, and I can help tell them. One of the reasons the series took 6 years is that we were not successful for the first few years in raising money, to make the series. And then this 2016 presidential campaign heated up. And suddenly there was this rhetoric in the air, and there was a feeling that this topic had been pushed front and center. What we did is we created 15 films.
Muslim is the word we use to label people that follow the Islamic religion.
And believes in the oneness of God.
And that Muhammad is his messenger.
That's really all that it is.
Things like not cheating, not stealing, not killing, not hurting folks.
We can't eat pork. There's no pork on my fork, no swine on my mind, not jiggy with a piggy.
And they were intended to be very shareable. We wanted to reach the biggest possible audience.
God is merciful. God is compassionate. Compassion, mercy, these were the two concepts.
And they were all intended to live on Facebook. Since Election Day, we've had over 27 million views. So
Samuel Freedman is a gentleman who, he's an American author, journalist, and currently a professor at the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism. He is the recipient of the Goldziher Prize in 2017. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you. First of all, I say to you all, shalom and salam aleichem, and peace be upon us all. In this time of rising hatred of Muslims and the othering of them, the stereotyping of them, the physical attacks on them, I felt that this was an issue that I wanted to take a stand on, that I didn't want someday to look back on myself, to have my kids, and someday hopefully grandkids will look back on what I had done and say, you wrote well, but you failed the test of history. And I felt that there was plenty of journalism being written about radicalization, about the statistically rare but shocking acts of terror, but very little being done about the ordinary lives of Muslims in this country. And to have this work singled out means everything to me. It's one of the things that I will say my whole life was worth it for, and I just bow down in thanks and homage to you all.
Give it up for Robin Wright, who has reported from these countries about these communities with the depth, sensitivity, and nuance. Robin Wright.
I landed in the Middle East on October 6, 1973, which was the day the Fourth Middle East War broke out. And I am a lifelong war correspondent. That's my thing. That's why, in fact, I tend to land someplace and war does break out, to the point my father said he didn't dare go to Bermuda on vacation with me because there's surely been a coup d'etat. I am kind of an outlier in this. I don't really cover Muslims in America. But because of a sequence of events, I ended up writing about Muslims in America over the last year and a half. And I really wanted to pay tribute to them and tell you what I learned from them. Almost 4,000 Muslims serve today in the U.S. military. There are an estimated 2,000 who serve as reservists or in the National Guard. And it's not a new trend. Yusuf Ben Ali, an Arab of North African descent, fought in George Washington's army. Muslims fought in the War of 1812 and the Civil War on both sides. 5,000 Muslims fought in World War I. Muslims also fought in World War II and Korea and Vietnam and Afghanistan and Iraq. Muslims fought in the U.S. military for 2 centuries, but they weren't allowed to have their first Muslim chaplain until 1993. I feel enriched in my life by having crossed paths with many Muslims, learning from their experience, and being inspired by their courage and their bravery. Thank you.
It's a good group, right? Well done. All right, so we got tears, we have hummus, we have laughter, we have applause, and they've given me a whopping 6 minutes to have a conversation with these 3 distinguished storytellers. What compelled you as non-Muslims, because none of you are Muslims yet, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Inshallah. To dive into the narrative minefield of Islam and American Muslims, one which is rife with trolling, anti-Muslim bigotry, death threats, and fatwas.
At a certain point, right before we started filming, I realized it's just about telling powerful stories. And it doesn't matter who they're about. It's the same rules of storytelling and journalism. And once I realized that, it became much easier, and I sort of lost the fear and just went ahead and tried to make meaningful films.
Why to dive into that field of hate? Because we're known by our enemies.
I think what we're all three committed to in different ways, or have come to our own kind of discovery, is that the one contribution we can make is to help us move on in the 21st century in every way, not just the Islamic world, but for all of us in every culture, every religion, every ethnicity.
Thank you again. Your presence here honors these individuals and their work. Thank you to all who are tuning in through the live stream, and good night. Be well. God bless.